You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
These are the news headlines today, Wednesday, the 6th of June. 1 out of 4 Shambolic UK Border Agency senior civil servants received a bonus last year. Muslim killer goes free, but the mother of underage abused daughter gets 7 years. SAS rescue 4 hostages in Afghan raid. European Central Bank under pressure to act. Barack Obama's re-election campaign hit by Republican Governor Scott Walker's survival of recall vote. China and Russia demonstrate their power. Thought for the day, honour killings and the Jubilee. Finally, an extremely fat purr bag in the US. UK news. 1 out of 4 Shambolic UK Border Agency senior civil servants received a bonus last year. It has been reported that 1 in 4 of senior civil servants in the near to useless UK Border Agency received large bonuses last year. A fifth took home bonuses of between £4,500 and £5,000, whilst 1 in every 25 received between £5,000 and £7,000. These figures are in relation to the years 2010 to 2011. In total, 13.5 million has been given in the last 4 years. The Commons Home Affairs Committee, who obtained the figures, said no further payments should be made until the many problems of the UKBA are resolved. A World at 8 reporter commented it would help this country considerably if they'd been doing their job the last 20 years, let alone the last 4. Muslim killer goes free, but mother of underage abused daughter gets 7 years. Gedu Bibi was jailed for 7 years for arranging the killing of her 13-year-old daughter's boyfriend for bringing shame on the family. Bibi of Walthamstow, North East London, was cleared of murder but found guilty of manslaughter and perverting the course of justice, sobbed as she was told she would serve at least 3.5 years. In an episode full of lies and cover-ups, it transpired that Suman Mia, 21, had posted topless pictures of the child, 13-year-old Shahina Khanam, online after a brief relationship in 2006. Bibi, justly furious, lured him to their home that October and hit him over the head with a table leg, which she later put into Shahina's hands and told her younger brother Falak, 12, to back up the story that her daughter had killed Mia. The actual killer, however, has never been found, but it was thought to be the estranged husband of Bibi, Anga Mia, who was arrested but never charged. He has fled home to Bangladesh, taken a very young girl as a second wife and is enjoying life. But fresh information emerged in 2010 which led to Bibi and her friend, 49-year-old cafe owner Lilu Mia, being charged with murder. Lilu was cleared of murder but sentenced for perverting the course of justice for 2 years. He is already in jail, however, for 10 years for rape. What a charming source of social enrichment in good old Londistan. SAS rescue 4 hostages in Afghan raid. A British aid worker hostage and 3 colleagues were rescued in a daring raid by the SAS in Afghanistan over the weekend. US helicopters launched from the capital Kabul dropped 20 men from the 22 SAS regiment 6 miles from their target. They marched across rugged terrain in darkness before finding the hostages in a cave and nearby gully. All 5 Taliban kidnappers were killed within seconds and the captives were airlifted to safety by RAF helicopter once the area was secured. Euronews. European Central Bank under pressure to act. With the Spanish Prime Minister warning that his country is in a state of extreme difficulty, the Greek Finance Minister warns that Greeks face a choice between difficulty and catastrophe. Some are claiming that Spain is too big to fail and that greater European Union with a common fiscal policy is the only solution to the growing crisis. The thinking goes that there is not enough money to bail out Spain, and should Spain fall then Italy will be close behind, and there is most definitely not enough money to save both. All this is occurring at the same time Moody's cut the rating for the Austrian and German banks. The world markets are losing confidence in the euro and the ability of the European Union to withstand this crisis. Even financier Warren Buffett is calling for a strong European Union, saying that a common currency requires a common fiscal policy. A World at 8 reporter commented, "Greater control there, folks." World news. Barack Obama's re-election campaign hit by Republican Governor Scott Walker's survival of recall vote. The recall vote in Wisconsin was triggered when 1 million signatures were collected by a labour union after Walker outlawed collective bargaining and cut public spending. President Obama's critics claimed a momentous victory and is seen by many as a critical defeat of Obama's agenda. Walker said voters want leaders who can stand up and make the tough decisions. Presidential hopeful Mitt Romney's campaign team released a statement the governor's victory would echo beyond the borders of Wisconsin. China and Russia demonstrate their power. Beijing and Moscow will shortly send a clear message to the world at the ongoing Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. They have clearly stated no to the bombing Iran, no to bombing Syria and a larger role in stabilising Afghanistan. Vladimir Putin will meet Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad while in Beijing for the summit. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Liu Wenmin has stated that China and Russia are in close communication on Syria and all countries should be clear of their position. There should be an immediate end to violence and the political dialogue process should be launched as soon as possible. Chinese President Hu Jintao has also outlined a broad plan for the SCO's future role as the region's preeminent grouping, while firmly rejecting outside meddling. Hu has said we will continue to follow the concept that regional affairs should be managed by countries in the region, that we should guard against shocks from turbulence outside the region and should play a bigger role in Afghanistan's peaceful reconstruction. It is clear that China and Russia will not authorise the use of force against the Syrian government in the United Nations Security Council, although no one knows their plans for Iran and Afghanistan. Thought for the day. Well, we have a double bubble today. My thoughts on the Muslim woman jailed for up to 7 years for manslaughter and the Jubilee. Firstly, the case on World Date today concerning Gedu Bibi. In 2006 her 13-year-old daughter had what is called a brief relationship with a hospital porter who was then I believe 21 years old. During this brief relationship with an underage girl he posted 4 lewd pictures of her topless online. Now I do not know about you but I would be seething. Of course I understand the underage sexual culture in Muslim society, it does not rate the condemnation it does in Western society, but 13 years old is 13 years old in my book. Of course it was a Muslim on Muslim business, but I think that Bibi was well within her rights to wallop this fellow soundly. Apparently she arranged for him to visit the family home and she or someone gave him a wallop on the head. After the attack in October 2006, Mia fell into a coma and died 9 days later. Bibi said she had retaliated with a table leg after being threatened by Mia with a knife, but only her fingerprints were found on the knife. At first it was thought her husband did it. Anger. Don't you love the name? He was arrested but set free. He is now in Bangladesh with a very young girl as a second wife. Then in 2010 both Bibi and a friend, Lilu Mia, were arrested and charged. Bibi's was for manslaughter and Lilu for perverting the course of justice. Fortunately Lilu is already in jail for what? He was given 10 years for rape. It gets better, doesn't it? Bibi's sentence appears to be the result of the combination of British so-called justice and the Muslim culture. It was an honour killing but the alleged murdered guy is a male Muslim. Result? The actual murderer has gone free, even after being arrested, and the child's mother is serving time. You can see what happens when Muslim men seduce underage girls of their own faith. They either get away with it or marry them, or if they're stupid enough to take and post photos online, they get killed. It is a shame that the British police and the courts did not do more to get the actual murderer to justice. It is not even reported as an honour killing, which it is. This shows that although even in the light of the accepted norm of honour killings, reference arranged marriages specifically, the media are still denying the fact that even with the glaring cultural differences between the Muslim way of life and the Western Judeo-Christian one, East and West will never be at peace with one another. Hell, they're not even at peace with each other. With all their varying different sects and branches of Islam, they have a class system even more deeply rooted than the English one of old. Frankly, I feel sorry for Bibi. She is a mother and her daughter had been abused. Whether to her knowledge or not, a 13-year-old girl from whatever ethnicity or religion should not be subjected to the attentions, whether wanted or not, of a 21-year-old man. If he had been non-Muslim, I doubt if his feet or his head would have touched base, but because he was of their faith and sect, he was accepted. Now this Muslim child was underage in 2006. What are the authorities doing about that? I would bet nothing. According to Mohammedan law, a girl can marry without the consent of her parents once she attains the age of puberty, and she has the right to reside with her husband even if she is below the age of 18. Now puberty can happen as early as 10 years in some ethnicities. The average Western age of puberty I believe is 12. Normally, as we all know, if a Muslim wants to get away with this totally, he usually targets a non-Muslim underage child, and then the police will really turn a blind eye. So poor old Bibi is fitted for jail time and everyone is feeling happy about it. I am not. She was only doing what any mother would do. Unfortunately, we only know too well what happens to our British mothers when they have this sort of problem. They are ignored, but not yet happily jailed. Now the Jubilee. I'm of two minds on this one. I believe the British people needed a celebration of something, and this 60-year-old reign has cropped up. Now I have nothing against the royals. They do a good job and they're paid handsomely for it. The price of doing a good job in the eyes of successive British governments is to be seen to agree or promote practically everything that is detrimental to the British people. Now I like Philip, who has fallen foul of the PC Brigade on many an occasion, but what a fun guy he is. An evening of his asides and comments would make my day, so to speak. But he is hushed up in contrast to poor old Charles, with his PC love-up of everything incorporating religion and culture. A multi-faith royal? Oh dear, no never. Now for the most part I was certainly never a Lady Di fan. I thought the country and the media adopted a most un-British stance with their weeping and wailing and renting of clothes on her sad and untimely death. But when she sailed off into the sunset that weekend and left her boys for a time away with the son of an Egyptian gangster, albeit a very wealthy one, I did think it was a bit ripe that a few days after we were all in rags and ashes. But the poor old Queen has had a lot to deal with family-wise, as we all have in our own way. The one thing she has done is kept the royal family out of any racist, religious or cultural slurs. You can be any colour, any religion, you can be a mass murderer if you are black or khaki and still enter the hallowed halls of the palace, but you cannot be a nationalist. Now where does that put a small majority of Brits who are and still celebrated the Jubilee? Well, I did give in and I watched the royal barge going down the Thames. I was struck by the amount of people who turned up and was obviously pleased. The weather was foul. Her Highness and the Prince did not sit in the throne specially made for them. Why? They would have been warmer, we would have had seen more of them, and poor old Phil wouldn't have got the chills, bless him. Somewhere there was a very unhappy throne maker drinking himself to death over that slip-up. I was also missing the inevitable Muslim protesters. I would have thought they would have shown up just to show us they're still here, but to no avail. Lovely. To be blunt, our Queen has not ruled the country for many, many years. She is paid by the House of Commons and you cannot get more common than our House of Commons. She's done a good job for the world media, but not for us as a country. Her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, was the last real monarch this country has known. What she said was done. It was a case of her who must be obeyed, or else, and quite right. If you're given a country to rule, rule it. Don't allow for a succession of mealy-mouthed, politically correct, heavily funded morons to do it for you. Now I do not believe that power should be in the hands of the people solely. Some people are born to rule and some acquire it. If Edward had not been set up to abdicate, and it was a colossal fit-up, Elizabeth might still have had accession to the throne, as Edward and Wallis would never have had children, but she would have been more prepared for it, and so would the country. But that aside, our Queen has allowed massive immigration, business takeovers, property grabs and more. She has allowed the common market to grow into a gigantic, pervasive octopus and has signed away all Britain's sovereign rights consistently. She has allowed people on her honours and title lists who should not be, in fact a very few should be at the Court of Human Rights for crimes against humanity. She has accepted gifts from tyrants and traitors. She has not stood up for her police force or her armed services. She has no actual pull with what goes on for the people of this country. But she has fulfilled the role that the government and the establishment want her to fulfil. If I had been given the task I would have lasted about a week. Mind you, a lot of what has happened to our country would not have happened, but we will never know. Despite her awful record of actually not doing anything but appearing to do a lot, I would rather have her than Barack Obama. Enough said. She does bring the tourists in, it is said. Let us hope a few of the buggers actually leave the country. And finally, living up to his cartoon namesake's notoriously gargantuan appetite, an obese Garfield was brought into North Shore Animal League of America in Long Island, New York, after his owner passed away. He tipped the scales at a whopping 40 pounds, nearly 3 stone, and the staff have since put him on a low-calorie diet, containing no dry food in the hope Garfield can lose around £2 a month. SpongeBob, a 33-pound Ginger Tom, was believed to be the world's fattest moggy after the previous record holder, Meow, from Santa Fe, New Mexico, died of pulmonary failure at 39 pounds in May. Apparently overweight purbags are likely to suffer from the same illnesses as fat humans: diabetes, blood pressure, cancer and more. Garfield doesn't walk much now, but the staff are encouraging him to move with toys, a ball, and by picking him up and putting him down somewhere else, so he has to walk back to his original spot. Oh bless him. Garfield would now be given over to a foster carer while staff look for a new owner who is committed to helping him become healthy and active. I'm sorry. You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
These are the news headlines today. Hit by Republican Governor Scott Walker's survival of recall vote. China and Russia demonstrate their power. Thought for the day: honour killings and the Jubilee. Finally, an extremely fat purrbag in the US. UK news. 1 out of 4 Shambolic UK Border Agency senior civil servants received a bonus last year. It has been reported that 1 in 4, in total 13.5 million, has been given in the last 4 years. The Commons Home Affairs Committee, who obtained the figures, said no further payments should be made until the many problems of the UKBA are resolved. A World at 8 reporter commented it would help this country considerably if they'd been doing their job the last 20 years, let alone the last 4. Muslim killer of senior civil servants in the near to useless UK Border Agency received large bonuses last year. A fifth took home bonuses of between £4,500 and £5,000, whilst 1 in every 25 received between £5,000 and £7,000. These figures are in relation to the years 2010 to 2011. Wednesday, the 6th of June. 1 out of 4 Shambolic UK Border Agency senior civil servants received a bonus last year. Muslim killer goes free, but the mother of underage abused daughter gets 7 years. SAS rescue 4 hostages in Afghan raid. European Central Bank under pressure to act. Barack Obama's re-election campaign